we were considering functions. A function is a map from a set A to a B, where by a rule you associate an element of B with every element of A. And we have also seen what is meant by a surjective function or onto function and injective function, one to one function and bijective function. In a surjective function, every element of B will be an image of some element of A. In an injective function, different elements of A will be mapped onto different elements, and if a function is both surjective and injective, it is called a bijective function. So, this definition we have already seen. Anyway, let us recall this. Let f be a function from A to B, then f is surjective if f of A is equal to B, that is every element of B is an image of some element of A, and f is injective if A not equal to A dash implies f A not equal to f A dash, that is different elements of A will be mapped onto different elements of B, and if it is both injective and surjective, it is bijective. Now, what we were considering, what is the use of these functions. For example, the idea will be useful when you consider a hash function. What is a hash function? You will have some records, and these records will have to be stored in some computer in consecutive memories or addresses. So, you have locations, say suppose you have 400 records of a company, say employee record or something like that, then they have to be stored in say addresses between this 499. You have 500 places where it can be stored, and these 400 records have to be stored there. Now, how will you identify which one has to be stored where? So, it may not be advisable to take the first record here, second record, because some other ways sometimes you want to retrieve the record in a very quick manner. So, what is, for example, this is employee records of a company, say, then the social security number could be the key. It is unique, social security number is unique for the person, it is a 9-digit number. So, suppose I have say 421 773 3824, something like that as the social security number of a person. Then you may say that you may use a function h such that this will reduce to 421, and then you can store it in the address 421. Now, if it is between 500 and suppose you 1000, that is suppose I have something like 678 like this, then I can define this mod 500, that is 678 minus 500 is 178, like that you can try to define. But in many places what will happen is people belong to the same area or same locality, their social security number may begin in the with the same 3 digits. So, if it so happens that in the 400 records you are having 300 of them begin with 421, you have to store 300 of them here, that is not possible. As far as possible, you would like to have each one mapped onto a different number, right. That is, you would like to have an injective function, but we cannot go on defining a new function every time. So, we will try to define in such a way that more or less it happens to be an injective function. It may not be exactly an injective function where different elements will be mapped down to different elements, but it is almost like an injective function. For example, you may define something like this. Suppose I have a 9-digit number like this, say something like this, say. Then this has to be reduced to a number with 3 digits, where the first digit can be 0 to 4, second digit can be 0 to 9, third digit can be 0 to 9. So, for the first digit you can use something like this. This if I denote as x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6, x7, x8, x9, then you may define like this. First one is, this has to be reduced to a number y1, y2, y3, where y1 will be between 0 and 4, y2 and y3 can be between 0 and 9. So, you can define like this, something like x1 plus x4 plus 7, y1 is this mod 5. In that case, it will reduce to a number between 0 and 4, and y2 is a number x2 plus x5 plus x8 mod 10. Then this will reduce to a number between 0 and 9. y3 will be x3 plus x6 plus x9 mod 10. So, in this case, what will be y1, y2, y3? In this case, 4 plus 7 is 11, 11 plus 4 is 15, 15 mod 5 is 1, sorry, 15 mod 5 is 0. Then the second number y2 will be 2 plus 7 9, 9 plus 2 11, 11 mod 10 is 1. Then third number is 1 plus 4, 1 plus 3 4, 4 plus 8 12, 12 mod 10 is 2. So, this will reduce to 0 1 2, and the number, this record will be stored in the place corresponding to 12. Here also it is possible that different elements will be mapped onto different elements, but you cannot ensure this. It may so happen that two of them go to the same address, or two of them get mapped onto the same element. In that case, you say that a collision has occurred. Suppose one record you have already stored here, another record also you get the same number, then a collision occurs. Then the second record you have to store somewhere else, maybe below that or some other place, and then you must have a pointer pointing to that element. This is the way usually it is done in compilers and in several other fields in computer science. This has functions. This is not the unique way of defining a hash function. There are several ways of defining hash functions, and as far as possible you would like them to be injective functions, but you cannot ensure that. So, most probably you will select some functions which are almost like injective, and in some cases that condition may be violated and collisions may occur, in which case you have to make some adjustment and store the second element, which is hashes to the same address in a different place, and have a pointer to that element. So, this is how it is done to store elements in a table inside the computer. Now, we have two sets A, B, say, and a function is from A to B. There can be several functions. For example, I will just take two examples, 0, 1, A, B, or 1, 2, probably 1, 2 and A, B. Then I can have a function where these two are mapped down to A. I can have a function where this is mapped down to this is mapped down to this, like that. Generally, the set of all functions from A to B, set of all functions from A to B is denoted by B power A. This is the notation used. Now, let us see some properties about the surjective, injective and bijective function. Now, if you have a composite function, let f g be a composite function. If f and g are surjective, then f g is surjective. If f and g are injective, then f g is injective. If f and g are bijective, then f g is bijective. Let us prove this result. So, G is from A to B, f is from B to C. Then f dot g is from, the composite function is from A to C. It is like this. G you have like this. The composite function will be defined in this manner. So, if you have an element A, f g of an element A will be f of g of A. This is how you define. So, it maps an element of the belonging to set A to an element belonging to the set C. Now, we want to show that if f and g are surjective onto, then f g is surjective. How can you prove that? Suppose f and g are surjective. That means we want to show that f g is surjective. If f and g are surjective, because f is surjective, take some C belonging to C, take some element C belonging to C, then there exists a B, because f is surjective, there exists a B belonging to B such that f of B is equal to C. Then only the surjective condition is satisfied. And because G is surjective, there exists a belonging to A such that B is equal to G of A. So, what can you say? F g of A is equal to C. So, if you take an element C from the set C, there is an element A from the set A such that f g of A is equal to C, that is f g is a surjective function. So, if f and g are surjective, then f g is a surjective function. Similarly, if f and g are injective, f g will be an injective function. What does that mean? Suppose f and g are injective, f and g are injective, that is, take A not equal to A dash, then A dash belonging to A, then g of A will not be equal to g of A dash. Why? Because G is injective, different elements will be mapped onto different elements. So, take f of g of A and f of g of A dash. They are different. So, the map, because f is injective, these cannot be equal. That is, f g of A is not equal to f g of A dash. That is, f g maps different elements into different elements. So, f g is injective. That is the second part. If f and g are injective, then f g is injective. What is a bijective function? If a function is injective and surjective, it is bijective. So, from the first two parts, the third part will follow. If f and g are bijective, then f and g are surjective, so f g will be surjective. F and g are injective, so f g will be injective. Because f g is surjective and injective, it will be bijective. So, the third part follows from the first two parts. Next, consider this. Let f g be a composite function. If f g is surjective, then f is surjective. If f g is injective, then f is injective. If f g is bijective, then f is surjective and g is injective. Now, f g is surjective. Let us consider this. It will also again follow in a similar argument like this. G is from A to B, again F is from B to C. FG is surjective. Then if FG is surjective, then F is surjective. There exists a C for let C be belong to C, then what happens here? There exists a B, there exists a A in A such that FG A is equal to C. But G of A is some element B. So, F of B is equal to C. That is, there is an element B belonging to B such that C is the image of that. That means F is surjective. F is surjective too. This holds for every C belonging to C. So, F is surjective. The other way around, if Fg is injective, G is injective in that case. So, we see that if Fg is injective, then G is injective. How do you prove that? Fg is injective. So, if you have A not equal to A dash, F of G of A is not equal to F of G of A dash. But suppose GA is equal to GB, if it were true that GA is equal to GA dash, then if G were not injective, you may get a case like this. In that case, FGA will be equal to FGA dash, isn't it? Mapping this onto F, you will get this. But you know that FGA is not equal to FGA dash, so this cannot happen. So, GA will not be equal to GA dash, that is G will be injective, G, that is G is injective. Now, look at the third part. If Fg is a bijective function, it is both surjective and injective. From the first two parts, you know that because Fg is surjective, F is surjective, and because Fg is injective, G is injective. So, if Fg is a bijective function, then you have F is surjective and G is injective. The third part follows from the first two parts. Now, we consider different types of functions. These things you must have already seen in your school days, but anyway we will consider them separately here. A function f goes a to b is a constant function if there exists some b belonging to b such that f a is equal to b for every a belonging to a, that is f a is equal to b. Suppose I have some say 1, 2, 3 and a, b, c. If 1 is also mapped on to b, 2 is also mapped on to b, 3 is also mapped on to b, this is a constant function. Taking the set of real numbers to real numbers, a constant function taking the x axis and the y axis, f of x is equal to c, a constant is denoted. This is denoted by a line parallel to the x axis, this is c. Y is equal to c is a line parallel to the x axis. So, this is known as a constant function. The identity function 1a is a function on a, that is here b is same as a. So, identity function which is denoted by 1a is a mapping from a to a. So, if you have say a b c and a b c, a will be mapped on to a, b will be mapped on to b, c will be mapped on to c. This is f of a is equal to a for all a. then that is called a identity function and it is denoted by A. Usually the identity function is denoted by this notation, but you must specify the set on which it is defined. 1b is also an identity function, but it is defined on the set B. 1a is a function, identity function defined on the set A. They are identity functions, but they are defined on different sets. Suppose f is a function from A to B, then f is equal to f into 1a and equal to 1b into f. Suppose f is a function from A to B, then you can say like this. What can you say about f of 1 of A? That is equal to f of 1a, in take an element A, 1 of A, this is like this, equal to f of 1 of A is the identity function, that is f of A. Okay. So, for any A this holds. So, f is equal to the composite function f into 1a. Now, what can you say about 1b into f? 1b into f, the composite function. 1b into f of A will be 1b into 1b of f of A, but 1b f of A is an element in B and any element in B is mapped onto itself by 1b. So, this will be f of A. So, you can also see that f is equal to 1b into f. Please note this difference. F is from A to B, 1a is the identity function on A, 1b is the identity function on B. Then f is equal to f dot 1a and f is equal to 1b dot f. You should not write in the other way around, it may not have proper meaning. The permutation on a set A is a bijective function on A. Consider the elements from say 1, 2, 3, 4 say. A permutation is a rearrangement. A permutation of this is a rearrangement. Say 3, 1, 4, 2 is a rearrangement. So, 1 is mapped on to 3, 2 is mapped on to 1, 3 is mapped on to 4, 4 is mapped on to 2. You find that different elements are mapped on to different elements. So, it is injective and every element here occurs as the image of something or the other. So, it is also surjective. Since it is both injective and surjective, it is bijective. So, permutation is a rearrangement of these integers and because it satisfies both the conditions of injectivity and surjectivity, it is a bijective function. Now, you can have composition of permutations that will also be bijective. Each permutation is a bijection. So, the composition of bijective functions will also be bijective. Then this monotonic increasing functions, monotonic decreasing functions. These words you might have frequently heard in school or college days. What is the definition in a formal way? Let us see. Consider a function from real to real, real number to real number. It is monotone increasing if x less than or equal to y implies fx less than or equal to fy, and strictly monotone increasing if x less than y implies fx less than fy. So, if you draw the graph of a monotone increasing function, it will be something like this. You have 2 points x and y. If x is less than y, f of x is less than f of y. The function will have a graph something like this. This is a monotone increasing function. Nowhere equality holds, it is called a strictly monotone increasing function. On the other hand, if you have monotonic decreasing function, the graph of that will be something like this. something like this. X less than or equal to y implies f x greater than or equal to y. The function is monotone decreasing if x less than or equal to y implies f x greater than or equal to f y, and strictly monotone decreasing if x less than y implies f x greater than f y. So, if you have say two values x and two x values x and y, or you can say, then f of x is this, f of y is this is greater than this. The graph will be something like this. This is called a monotone decreasing function. If somewhere they are equal, it is monotone. Nowhere any two values are equal, it is called strictly monotone decreasing. So, this definition follows the third point, it follows immediately. If f is strictly monotone increasing, then f is monotone increasing. Obviously, a strictly monotone increasing function will be monotone increasing, a strictly monotone decreasing function will be monotone decreasing. Only thing is, in the first one you allow for less than or equal to, monotone increasing or monotone decreasing, you say less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, but in strictly monotone decreasing and monotone increasing, you say f x should be less than f y or f x should be greater than f y, as the case may be. Let A be a bijection from A to B, then what is the inverse function f? It is a converse of the relation f. So, you have a bijective function from A to B. Say 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, you have a bijective function. 2 is mapped down to C, 3 is mapped down to B. So, you say f of 1 is equal to A, f of 2 is equal to C, f of 3 is equal to B. Then the inverse mapping f inverse is from B to A. It is a converse relation, you have to change the direction of the arrows. So, it is defined from B to A and it is like this, f inverse of A is 1, f inverse of B is 3, f inverse of C is 2. So, the converse relation represented by this is called the inverse function f inverse and it is denoted by B to A. Suppose take the set of integers to integers, consider the function f from I to I, set of integers to set of integers such that f of x is equal to x minus 1, x plus 1. Then 2 will be mapped down to 3, 3 will be mapped down to 4, 4 will be mapped down to 5. It is a bijective function. You know that different elements will be mapped down to different elements. What is f inverse of x? It is x minus 1, because if you map 2 onto 3, f of 2 is 3, then f inverse of 3 will be 2. So, that is x minus 1. You define f inverse in this manner. Such functions are called inverse functions. Let f be a bijective function from A to B, then f inverse is a bijective function and it is from B to A. This is what we have seen now. If f is bijective, then f inverse that is inverse of f inverse is f itself. How is that? Look at this example. Originally we had A, this is f, right, this is f. Then f inverse is, you reversed all the arrows, f inverse was represented like this, this is f inverse. Now, we again take the inverse again you have to change the arcs. So, F inverse is F itself. Okay. Now, how do we represent what is F inverse F? So, you know that F inverse F is the identity function, but on what? It is identity function on what? F is from A to B, F inverse is from B to A. So, F into F inverse will be, that is, this one will be an identity function on A, because this is from A to B and this is from B to A. So, F inverse dot F will be an identity function on A. But what can you say about F inverse? This is from B to A, this is from B to A and this is from A to B. So, F dot F inverse will be the identity function, but now it will be on a different set B. F dot F inverse will be on B. Let F be from A to B and B dash a subset of B, then F inverse B dash denotes subsets of A called the inverse image or pre-images of B dash under A. That is, if you have something like this, F is from A to B, A, this is A, this is B, this is A, this is B. Now, you have a subset B dash, some elements of A dash, subset of this are mapped on to this. Now, F inverse of B dash is a set of all elements whose image is in B dash, and such a set A dash is called the pre-image. So, it is defined like this. F inverse of B dash is a set of elements X such that F of X belongs to B dash, that is called the pre-images, set pre-image. A dash is called the pre-image of . Next, we see that a function can introduce an equivalence relation. We have already seen what is meant by an equivalence relation. An equivalence relation is a relation which is reflexive, symmetric and transitive. A function can introduce an equivalence relation on a set. How can that? Suppose F is a function from A to B, there are some elements like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B has 3 elements A, B, C. Now, 1 is mapped on to A, 4 is mapped on to A, 2 is mapped on to C, 3 is also mapped on to C, 5 is mapped on to B. If this is the mapping, then 1 and 4 are mapped on to A. So, they belong to one class, 2 and 3 are mapped on to C, they belong to one class, 5 is mapped on to B, that is in one class. You are partitioning A into subsets like that, and we know that a partition induces an equivalence relation. So, you say that two elements A and B are related, A related to B, if f of A is equal to f of B. Then this relation, you say A related to B if f of A is equal to f of B. Then you say that this relation is an equivalence relation, because A will be related to A obviously, and if A is related to B, f of A is equal to f of B. So, B also will be related to A, the symmetric property is also satisfied. And if A is related to B, f of A is equal to f of B, and if B is related to C, that means f of B is equal to f of C. So, f of A equal to f of B equal to f of C. So, from this you can conclude A and C are related. So, this satisfies the transitive property. So, all these three properties, reflexivity, symmetry and transitivity, are satisfied. So, this is an equivalence relation. Let R be an equivalence relation on a set A, then the function G A into AR is a canonical map from A to the quotient set A/R. Okay. So, this an equivalence relation on set A divides it like this. Then this is the equivalence class containing 1. So, f of A is the equivalence class containing A. If you define like this, here there are 3 equivalence classes. If I call them as say E1, E2, E3, 1 and 3, 4 are mapped on to E1, 2 and 3 are mapped on to E2, 5 is mapped on to E3. Such a map is called a canonical map and is denoted by A by R. Now, we talk about extension of functions and restriction of functions. Sometimes we note that you may have a function defined like this. Say you take the set of integers to set of integers and define like this: f of x is equal to x plus 1. This is a function from integers to integers, but if I restrict a domain and say that non-negative integers, I define f say f dash say. This is from non-negative integers to non-negative integers, but it defines the same one. You define like this: f of x, f dash of x is equal to x plus 1. This is the same as f of x as far as the non-negative integers are considered, but you are not considering the whole domain, you are considering only a subset of the original domain. So, let A and B be 2 sets and f is a function from A to B, and let A dash be a subset of the domain of f. A dash is a subset of A. The restriction of f to A dash is a function denoted by f A dash, that is, it is denoted like this: f A dash, it is denoted like this. It is defined as from A dash to B, but as far as the elements of A dash is considered, it is the same as f of x. F dash x is also the same as f of x. As in the case, instead of defining from integers to integers, you can restrict the domain. You need not have to restrict the codomain. The codomain can be still integer, but does not matter. It will be mapped on to only positive non-negative integers only. So, you need not have to change the codomain, but domain you are restricting. It is n is a subset of I. If you restrict and you define the same map, this is called a restriction. This is called a restriction. You are restricting the domain, that is all, and it is usually denoted in this manner. You have a function from A dash to B, that is f. Then you have function g from A to B, where A is a superset of A dash. A is a bigger set than A dash. Then G is called an extension of f to the domain A if G A dash is equal to f. For example, you consider this. F is a function, say in this example, non-negative integers to I, that is f of x is equal to x plus 1 or whatever it is, x minus x plus 2 or something. Then G you define the same function, but the domain is a bigger domain. Again you define G of x is equal to same way. Then this is G is called an extension of S. G is called an extension of x of f, because G when you restrict it to the domain of A dash, that is equal to f. If you look at finite sets, this extension can be defined in this manner. Suppose I have a function f between two sets, say a function f like this 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. Then I want to have some more elements, this function is f, I want to have some more elements say 5 and 6, but as far as 1, 2, 3 and 4 the same map. For 5 and 6 I define like this, 5 is mapped on to D, 6 is mapped on to C, something like this I define. This is an extension of what we defined earlier. You are having some additional things defined, and the underlying set you are making it as a bigger set. Now from this I want to have only 3 elements defined, this function defined, then I can remove these things. Okay. Now for subset we are defining the function, but it is the same as the original function, but you are making the domain smaller. This is called a restriction of the function. So you can define restriction and extension. These ideas later you will see that are used very much in automata theory. You will first define a function, transition function delta on k cross sigma, and then extend it to k cross sigma star and so on. Now what is a characteristic function? Let A be a set. For every set A dash contained in A, the characteristic function with domain A of the set A dash is denoted by chi A dash is defined as follows. It is a map from A to the set 0 1, that is every element in A will be mapped on to 0 or 1. If it is mapped on to 1, when will it be mapped on to 1? If A belongs to A dash, and if A does not belong to A dash, it will be mapped on to 0. So you define like this, chi A is a mapping from A to the element 0 1 such that chi A dash is equal to, chi A dash of A is equal to 1 for A belonging to A dash, and chi A dash of A is equal to 0 for A not belonging to A dash. This is how you define. Take for example a set like this, A is equal to A, B, C, D. It has got 4 elements. You take a subset A dash is equal to AC. How do you define the characteristic function? Chi A dash. Chi A dash A is equal to 1 because it belongs to the subset. Chi A dash B is equal to 0, and chi A dash C is equal to 1 because it belongs to the set. Chi A dash D is 0 because D does not belong to the subset. So this is known as a characteristic function. The domain of a characteristic function is not specified by the notation chi A dash. You do not specify A explicitly here, it is understood, and it is usually understood. Now, you must have heard the word fuzzy set. What is it? See, characteristic function chi A dash, it is a map from A to 0 1. If you take some element in A, either it belongs to the subset or it does not belong to the subset. There is a marked distinction, either it will belong or it does not belong. So, it is mapped to one of the values 0 and 1. But if A is mapped on to some real value between 0 and 1, it may be mapped on to say 0.5, 0.2, 0.7, such a set is called a fuzzy set. That is, characteristic function will not map elements onto 0 and 1, but it will map something onto a real value between 0 and 1. Take for example, the set of tall persons. If I say set of tall persons, who is a tall person? Do you call a person tall if he is 6 feet, if his height is 6 feet, or if his height is 7 feet, or if his height is 5 feet 9 inches? And when do you call a person not tall if he is 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet? What is the criteria? Now, here it is, see, somebody may be tall to me and that person may not, you may not call him as a tall person, or I may call a person not tall, you may call a person tall. So, it is slightly subjective to your views. Now, in this case, if you map the element, suppose a person with who is 6 feet tall may be a member of the set of tall persons with the value 0.8. A person who is 7 feet tall may be the member of the set of tall persons with membership 0.95. A person who is 4 feet tall may be a member of that set with the membership value 0.3. So, the membership value is a fuzzy, is a real number between 0 and 1. Such a set is called a fuzzy set. So, we have seen several things about functions. We have seen what is meant by a monotone decreasing function, what is meant by a constant function, what is meant by a characteristic function, and so on. We have also seen what is meant by a recursive function. Now, look at this recursive as an example. Let us try to do one example. Define a function f like this. It is from n to n. So, the set of non-negative integers to n such that it is defined like this. F of x is equal to x minus 10 if x is greater than 100. F of x is equal to f of x plus 11. Now, calculate f of say 98. How will you calculate this? If you have say f of 105, that will be 95 obviously, 101 will be 91. But if you consider 98, how will you calculate this? F of x plus 11, 98 plus 11, that will be f into f of 109, but this is greater than 100. So, this will be minus 10. So, f of 99. So, what do you get? You get f of 98 is equal to f of 99. But what is f of 99? F of 99 is equal to f of 99 plus 11, that will be equal to f of 110, but this is greater than 100. So, you will subtract 10. So, that will be f of 100. So, you find that f of 98 is equal to f of 99 equal to f of 100, and what is that? F of 100 is equal to f of 100 plus 11, that is f of 111. This is still greater than 100. So, this will be 91. So, you find that f of 98 equal to f of 99 equal to f of 100 equal to f of 101 equal to 91. All this take the constant value 91, but f of 102 will be 92, 103 will be 93, afterwards it will be just minus 10. I have taken a value 98. Suppose I take f of say 89 or something like that. Still if you calculate the value, you will find that that will be only 91. Any value f of any value you take where x is between 1 and 99, then this will be only 91. This is called McCarthy's 91 function. The way you define it, it is not very easy to understand or realize that this is that function. That is all values between, for all arguments between 1 and 100, 101, it will take the value 91, and later on it is this value. The way it is, because there is 2 recursion inside this, it is a recursive function no doubt, but in the definition itself 2 recursions are involved. Now, you can talk about left inverse and right inverse of a function and so on, and the relation, you can bring out the relationship between them. Let h be a function from a to b and g be a function from b to a, and g of h is equal to 1a. Then g is a left inverse of h and h is a right inverse of a. When the function is bijective, we have already seen what is meant by a inverse function. When it is f is bijective, when f is bijective, we define f inverse. But you may have one sided inverses, you may have left inverses and you may have right inverse. In this case, if in the bijective case, f is from a to b, f inverse will be from b to a. In that case, we have seen that f of f inverse is, this is b to a to b. So, this will be 1b, and f inverse of f will be 1a, identity function on a. Now, if you have 2 functions g and h, g is from b to a and h is from a to b. So, g of h, if you say it is a to b, b to a, so it is an identity function on 1a. Okay. Then you say if g of h is 1a, then you say g is the left inverse of h. G is the left inverse of h and h is the right inverse of g. This is what you define. Now, these left inverses and right inverses to occur, you must have certain properties. The function, if a function has to have a left inverse, it should have certain property. Similarly, if a function has to have a right inverse, it has to have certain property, and also left inverses need not be unique and so on. We shall study about it in the next lecture.